Now I've got another saw project. I actually got this off the side of the road. I was taking my dog over to the park to walk, and someone had a bunch of junk in their front yard they were giving away. So on the way back home I stopped and I took this thing. It looks terrible. I mean, the tote's broken. I don't know who made it. It just says warranted superior on the medallion. There's some kind of a funky logo in the center, so I'm going to look it up and see if I can find out who made it. But I actually took and sawed a piece of pine with it, and it sawed right through it, and I had a piece of white oak laying nearby, and I sawed it right in half with this thing without any difficulty at all. The thing's actually sharp. I mean, it looks horrible. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the blade up now. It's going to need a new tote, and that'll just have to be something I'll have to do later on. Right now I'm going to clean it up and get all this nasty off of it. The other side, there's no paint on the other side. It's just really rusty, but I think it can be saved. I've never made a tote for a saw before, so that's something I'll take a shot at some point. But we're just going to save the blade for right now. I think it's worth saving. Back saws like this, big ones, are tough to get a hold of, and then when you find the good ones, people want way too much money for them. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try to clean this thing up a little bit. I'm going to take what's left of this tote off. I'm going to hang on to it for now. And what I'm going to do first, when I do a big saw like this, I generally try to scrape as much of the rust and stuff off of it as I can. It just, you know, when you go to use a rust remover on it, you're just not having to soak down all this rust and crud that's on this thing. Now, I'm just going to use this scraper and get as much of this off as I can. And I'm going to use a chemical rust remover on it. I'll just use some Scotch-Brite and some steel wool. And I'll only sand on it if I have to with sandpaper. I'll stay away from the teeth. I mean, I'll use a brass brush along the edge of those on both sides. I really don't want to take away any metal. It does have a decent setting. I try to maintain that if I can. This side's got all this paint on it. I don't know about this. I may have to put some paint remover on this and take it off. That's kind of stubborn. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to use paint remover on this side to get this off. I won't show any of that. But anyway, that'll be the first step, is to scrape all of this off, get the paint off, and then I'll go from there. You know. When I cleaned this thing up some, put some paint remover on it. I got the paint off of it, and I've gotten most of the rust off of it. I just decided that using some sandpaper on it and a brass brush would be just a little faster. Now, I stayed away from the teeth with the sandpaper. I used 180 grit, and I just went over them with a brass brush. I also went over the whole thing with a brass brush just to kind of pull up anything out of the, you know, the markings on it. It's just one of those rough grind blades that you kind of find from the 1960s and 70s and on. Now, I think at this point I'll probably end up using a liquid rust remover on it. I think it's close enough now that I can use that, and that'll get down into the grind and clean out all the dark colors and everything, and that'll make it look a whole lot better. But It came out good. And I also, on the medallion, it said warranted superior, but in the center, there was a couple of letters. And I finally realized that that was a Vermont American. And, you know, they've been around a long time. Now, whether they made this saw or that was sold through them, I don't know. But, you know, I'm assuming they made it. I was going to use some liquid rust remover to clean the rust off of this blade. And I just couldn't get any of the stuff that I normally use. I ran out. I went to several stores. No one had any of it. So I'm going to use vinegar now. I have another blade that I'm going to drop in here. I don't know what I'm going to do with that one. It's missing the tote. I'm not sure what happened to it. Just the way I ended up getting it. Now, the back saw, I wanted to put it in here also. I may need to put a little bit more vinegar in there. I'm going to leave it in here for a while. I don't think it'll take a whole lot of soaking. A little bit more vinegar, I think, in there. Yeah, maybe that's okay just like that. Now, it might be done by this evening. It's not a lot left on it, and this other old blade that I have in here is one of those rough grind blades. It might take a little while for that to clean up. But, we'll get it cleaned up, and we'll give it a few hours and see what happens. I think it'll work. All right, now I had the blade in the vinegar bath for about 3 hours. About an hour into that, I scrubbed it down with a scruff pad, took it out, dried it off, went over with the brass brush, and put it back in for about 2 more hours. And also did this one here. It was in the bath with it. I just did them both at the same time. It cleaned up pretty good. Now, it does have some real fine pitting, and both sides are about the same. This is the side that had the paint on it. It's not quite as bad, but it's in good shape. That's about as far as I can go with it. It really, you know, that's about as good as it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it. It'll be perfectly fine just the way it is. It's smooth. I mean, you could spend a bunch of time trying to polish it. You're not going to get these little pits out of there like that. I mean, as far as cleaning up the teeth, really good. Saw a few pieces of wood with it, and that'll clean them up really, really good. Now, that's going to do it as far as the blade goes. Now, I've already started a tote, and it's mostly done. And I'm going to do a separate video on that. It would just take too long to, to put it all into one video. And at the end of that video, I'll put it on this saw, and you'll have a look at it. So we'll call this part 1, and the tote, we'll call that part 2. Now, I did do some video of me making it. I didn't do every single step that I did, but most of it. Anyway, that's it on the Vermont American back saw blade.